10 habits all millionaires have in common. You know what's wild? Most people spend their whole life working for money, chasing it, stressing about it, losing sleep over it, but never once stopping to ask themselves, how do the people who already have it actually think? How do they move? How do they operate? Because here's the truth. Millionaires aren't just rich in their bank accounts. They're rich in behavior. They live differently. They think differently. And most importantly, they repeat different habits every single day. While you're hitting snooze for the third time, they're already up, planning, executing, sharpening their weapon. And it's not because they're better than you. It's because they've trained themselves to do what most people refuse to do. They've turned discipline into identity, action into instinct, and results into a daily routine. Millionaires don't wake up hoping for a good day. They wake up and design it. They don't wait for motivation. They don't need hype. They have systems. And that system starts with one brutal truth. Nobody is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your boss, not your government. Millionaires internalize this early, so they stop waiting. They start taking. They take control of their time, their mind, their money, and their future. They become dangerous in a quiet, focused kind of way. They don't talk about dreams. They turn them into calendars. They don't brag about what they're gonna do. They do it and let the silence scream for them. They don't wish. They work. They don't get jealous of people doing better. They study them. They reverse engineer their moves. They get curious, not bitter, because they understand envy is a distraction, but observation, that's a weapon. Every successful person you see is a walking blueprint. Most people scroll past that. Millionaires stop and ask, how did they build that? What did they sacrifice? What don't I know yet? And that's the first real habit right there. Curiosity with execution. They don't just wonder. They research, they test, they apply. They fail, they adapt, and they do it over and over until something breaks open. That's how winners are built, by doing what the average mind gets bored of. Here's another. Millionaires are obsessed with clarity. They're not out here saying, I want to be rich. That means nothing. Everyone wants that. Millionaires say, I want to build a business that does $100K/month in the next 18 months. I'll use e-commerce, I'll focus on health products, I'll learn FB ads, I'll wake up at 5, I'll study 2 hours a day, I'll fail 5 times and still show up. That's clarity. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you plan for. And they plan like assassins. Precise, cold, emotionless, focused. And that's another thing. They don't get overly emotional about setbacks. Most people have one bad day and fall apart, one failure and they question their whole worth. Millionaires, they treat failure like data, like a scientist in a lab coat. That didn't work. Why? What can I tweak? What can I build stronger next time? No self-pity, no crying in the corner, just adaptation. Again, and again, and again. That's how they win. They don't avoid failure. They farm it. They harvest the lessons, and they come back sharper. You ever notice how most millionaires don't panic when shit hits the fan? That's not luck. That's control. Emotional control. They've trained themselves to stay grounded when everyone else is reacting. They don't make emotional decisions with long-term consequences. They breathe, they wait, they think, then they move. That kind of control gives them power in negotiations, business, investing, everything. While the world's screaming, they're sitting still, watching, reading the room, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They also don't chase dopamine like the average person. You don't see them spending hours scrolling TikTok, watching drama, playing video games all day, not because they're boring, but because they've tasted something better. Progress, forward momentum, creating something from nothing. That hits different. That's the kind of high they're addicted to. And once you've felt that, you can't go back to being average. Let's talk about money. Most people spend it the second they get it. Millionaires? They treat every dollar like a soldier. Where can this go to multiply? Not spend, multiply. While the average person is buying flex, they're buying leverage, assets, skills, tools, access, relationships, because they know something most people ignore. Money isn't the goal, it's the fuel. The goal is freedom, time freedom, location freedom, mental freedom, and money is just the tool to get there. They build multiple income streams, not because they're greedy, but because they're strategic, because they know the system is fragile. The economy will break, markets will crash, jobs will disappear. So they don't rely on one thing. They create safety by stacking skills, income sources, and leverage points. That way, no matter what happens, they're not begging, they're building. Another habit? They protect their environment like it's sacred. They don't hang with people who drain them, who complain, who play victim. Even if it's family, even if it's friends from the past, they understand. Energy is contagious. If you hang around people who always find problems, you'll start seeing problems. But if you surround yourself with people who think in solutions, you'll rise. So they cut fast. They curate their circle like it's their life's work, because it is. And when they talk, they don't gossip. They don't talk about people. They talk about ideas, vision, strategy, execution, money, growth. They feed each other. Iron sharpens iron. That's how they keep their standards high. Millionaires also don't multitask like lunatics. They go deep. They single task, laser focus, one thing at a time, done with precision. Because they know that depth beats speed, that shallow effort never brings deep results. While everyone else is half-assing 10 things, they're mastering one. And that one thing opens doors the others never even see. They're also addicted to learning. They read. They listen. They pay to be in rooms with smarter people. They ask questions. They invest in coaches, mentors, courses, not because they're lost, but because they're committed. Most people think investing in knowledge is a waste. Millionaires think it's insurance against failure. They'd rather pay $5K for a mentor than lose $50K from a dumb mistake. And here's something deep. Millionaires don't let success make them soft. Just because they're up doesn't mean they stop grinding. In fact, most of them work harder after they're rich, not out of fear, out of passion. They love the game, the creation, the craft, the art of leveling up. That's why you'll see people worth millions still waking up early, still taking notes, still listening more than they talk. They're not proving anything. They're just built different. Most people chase comfort. Millionaires chase capacity. How far can I go? How sharp can I get? What's my next level? They live in that question, and that's what makes them unstoppable. Here's something most people never realize until it's too late. Millionaires don't just work hard, they work right. The average person is busy all day but moves nowhere. They mistake activity for progress. Millionaires, they focus on leverage. One action that gives 10 times the result. One decision that unlocks years of advantage. They understand the Pareto principle. 80% of results come from 20% of actions. So they spend most of their time identifying and executing on that 20%. While everyone else is drowning in small tasks, they're hunting big wins. They treat their energy like an investment. They know when to push and when to pull back. Burnout isn't a badge of honor to them, it's a sign of bad management. They understand that they are the asset. Their brain, their body, their emotional state, that's the machine. If the machine breaks, the game stops. So they take care of it. Sleep, training, clean food, mental resets, these aren't luxuries, they're necessities. Most people treat health like an afterthought, until it's gone. Millionaires treat it like the foundation. They also think decades ahead. They don't just ask, what will this do for me this month? They ask, what will this do for me in 10 years? That shift in thinking changes everything. It makes you patient where others are desperate. It makes you strategic where others are reactive. They'll turn down a quick 10K today if it means they can make 100K in a year, because they know that short-term greed destroys long-term wealth. Another habit, they move in silence. You won't see them broadcasting every move online. They're not trying to impress strangers on the internet. They're trying to impress their future self. They're not addicted to validation, they're addicted to progress. They understand that the more people know about your plans, the more noise you'll hear. Doubt, envy, distraction. So they execute quietly and let the results speak so loud no one can ignore them. They also keep receipts on themselves, not in the petty sense, but in the accountability sense. They track their promises, they remember what they said they would do, and they hold themselves to it, even when nobody's watching. Most people need someone breathing down their neck to stay disciplined. Millionaires have internal pressure, self-enforced standards. They're their own boss, even when they have no boss. Let's talk risk. Millionaires aren't reckless, but they're not scared either. They take calculated risks. That means they study, prepare, plan for failure, then jump. Most people wait for certainty before acting, but that's a trap. Certainty doesn't exist. Millionaires move when the odds are in their favor, even if they're not perfect. They trust their ability to adapt mid-flight. That's why they get opportunities others miss, because they were willing to leap when everyone else was waiting for a sign. They also understand one of the most overlooked truths. Your inputs shape your outputs. The books you read, the shows you watch, the people you talk to, the ideas you expose yourself to, these are all seeds. And they know you can't plant weeds and expect roses. So they curate their inputs like they curate their investments. They feed their mind material that challenges them, stretches them, forces them to think bigger. They filter out the noise because they know noise kills clarity. Millionaires build systems for self-improvement. They don't just try to get better. They design a process that forces them to get better. They schedule learning time. They write reflections. They track progress. They hire coaches to point out blind spots. They gamify their own growth so that winning becomes inevitable. Most people rely on willpower. Millionaires rely on structure. And structure beats motivation every time. They also master the art of saying no without guilt. Every yes has a cost. A yes to one thing is a no to something else. Millionaires guard their yes like gold. They don't jump into partnerships without alignment. They don't attend events without purpose. They don't add commitments without considering the cost. That's why their calendar is a reflection of their priorities, not someone else's. Another difference, you will rarely see a millionaire blame the economy, the government, or their competition for their failures. Not because these things don't affect them, but because blame is useless. It changes nothing. They focus on what they can control, and they control it relentlessly. They see challenges as signals, not roadblocks. A bad market? That's a chance to buy cheap. A new regulation? That's an opportunity to innovate. They flip problems into possibilities. They also know the power of momentum. They don't start and stop constantly. They build streaks. They protect their flow. Even small daily actions compound if you don't break the chain. They understand that success is less about intensity and more about consistency. Anyone can go hard for a week. Millionaires go steady for years. They'd rather make slow, constant progress than burn out chasing speed. Millionaires are strategic about who they learn from. They're not looking for random advice from random people. They study those who have done exactly what they want to do. They compress decades into days by paying for access to the right knowledge. They know it's cheaper to buy wisdom than to pay for mistakes. They invest in rooms where they're the smallest fish because that's where growth happens. And here's something subtle but powerful. They rehearse success in their mind. Not in some cheesy manifest and wait way, but in a psychological priming way. They visualize closing the deal, delivering the speech, building the product. They mentally walk through the steps so many times that when it's real, it feels familiar. This builds confidence, reduces hesitation, and sharpens execution. They also separate identity from outcome. If a business fails, they don't take it personally. Failure is feedback on a project, not a verdict on their worth. This keeps them moving when others quit. They know that one failure doesn't make you a failure, just like one win doesn't make you untouchable. They stay grounded, adaptable, and hungry. And most importantly, they play the infinite game. They're not trying to win once. They're building to keep playing forever. That means making moves that protect their future self, even if it means smaller wins today. They understand that the richest rewards come to those who can stay in the game the longest. Mindset number 5, ruthless focus. Millionaires don't just work hard, they work on the right thing, relentlessly. Here's the thing most people get wrong. They think success is about doing more, but in reality, it's about doing less better. They are ruthless with their time. They cut out distractions like a surgeon removing a tumor. If it doesn't align with their main goal, it's dead to them. No hesitation, no guilt. You'll never hear a millionaire say, "Oh, I didn't have time," because they know time is the most valuable currency in the game. Money, you can lose it and make it back. Time, you never get it back. Most people try to juggle 10 things at once. Millionaires, they pick one thing and squeeze every drop of potential out of it. They'll wake up thinking about it, work on it, talk about it, and breathe it until it blows up. If you want to think like them, you need to stop romanticizing being busy and start romanticizing results. Here's the truth nobody likes to hear. You will never be truly focused if you're too scared to say no. Millionaires say no more than they say yes, not because they're rude, but because they know every yes is a trade-off. If you want a life most people don't have, you can't waste time doing what most people do. Mindset number 6, obsession with leverage. Millionaires don't just work harder, they multiply their effort. You see, the average person trades hours for dollars. A millionaire asks, how can I make one action create 10 results? That's leverage. It's using tools, systems, people, and money to stretch your reach. It's putting in 1 unit of energy and getting 10 units back. Example, instead of knocking on 100 doors one by one, they'll build an online funnel that knocks on 1,000,000 doors while they sleep. Instead of doing all the work themselves, they hire someone better and faster. They're not afraid to spend money to make money. They know this. If you can only make money when you're physically working, you're trapped. But if you can make money while you're doing nothing, you're free. The scary part? Leverage requires trust. Trust in systems, trust in people. Most people can't handle that because it means letting go of control. But millionaires, they understand they can't win the game playing solo. They build machines, businesses, networks, investments that work without them. And once the machine is running, their income becomes uncapped. Mindset number 7, emotional mastery. Millionaires don't let emotions run the show. They don't freak out when the market crashes or when deals fall apart. They've learned to separate feelings from decisions. Most people react emotionally, panic selling, chasing trends, or freezing up. Millionaires, they train themselves to stay calm, cool, and collected because emotion clouds judgment and leads to costly mistakes. Think about it. Every impulsive purchase, every knee-jerk reaction, or "I'm quitting" moment fueled by frustration, that's the opposite of how millionaires operate. They practice patience like a monk. They breathe through stress and analyze situations with clarity. They focus on solutions, not problems. This control over their inner world gives them power over the outer world. They don't let fear or greed dictate their moves. They use logic and strategy instead. Mindset number 8, constant learning and adaptation. The world never stops changing, and neither do millionaires. They're obsessed with growth. They read books, listen to podcasts, take courses, attend seminars. They seek mentors and mastermind groups. They absorb new ideas and challenge their own thinking. The second you stop learning, you start dying. That's not just a cliche, it's reality. Millionaires understand that skills and knowledge compound just like money. Every new insight can open doors, spark innovation, or prevent disaster. But it's not enough to consume information. They apply it. They test, tweak, and pivot fast. Adaptability is their secret weapon in a constantly shifting world. If you want to grow wealthy, you have to become a lifelong student of business, psychology, technology, and human behavior. Mindset number 9, building networks and alliances. No one builds an empire alone. Millionaires know this. They invest heavily in relationships with other winners, partners, mentors, investors, collaborators. They surround themselves with people who push them forward, challenge their thinking, and expand their opportunities. Toxic people, energy vampires, or complainers don't make the cut. They don't tolerate negative influences because it kills momentum and clouds judgment. Their network is a source of ideas, deals, support, and motivation. They understand the value of reciprocity, giving as much as they take. If you're playing solo, you're playing small. If you want to scale, you need a tribe. Mindset number 10, relentless consistency. Finally, the hardest habit of all, consistency. Millionaires aren't just on when they feel like it. They show up day in and day out, rain or shine, motivated or not. Consistency beats talent. It beats luck. It beats raw effort without direction. Because building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. It's the tiny, daily actions compounded over months and years that separate the wealthy from the broke. They don't chase quick fixes or shortcuts. They build habits that become part of who they are. Even when the results don't show immediately, they keep pushing. They trust the process. All right, here's the raw truth. If you really want to break out of the cycle, if you're sick of being stuck, tired of watching other people get ahead while you stay the same, then it's time to act. This mindset shit, it's not optional. It's the damn foundation. Without it, you're building on quicksand. So if this hit you hard, if you feel that fire burning inside you, do yourself a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with the person you know who's ready to level up but still stuck in the bullshit. Because real change starts with the right mindset, and this message deserves to spread like wildfire. No fluff, no hype, just straight facts. If you're ready to own your future, stay locked in here, because we're just getting started. Time to step up, time to build, time to dominate. Welcome to the Power of Mindset podcast.